Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Let's face it, the future is now. We're living in a connected cyber society, and we need to stop ignoring it or pretending that it's not affecting us. Join us as we explore how humanity arrived at this current state of digital reality and what it means to live amongst so much technology and data. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Devo unlocks the full value of machine data for the world's most instrumented enterprises. The Devo Data Analytics Platform addresses the explosion in volume of machine data and the crushing demands of algorithms and automation. Learn more at devo.com.
Here we go. Bruce, do you have a joke for me today?
Okay. Well, we're going to be calling this podcast a cell, a silicone, and a carbon walk into a bar. So I am here in a bar, well, at least a virtual bar.
Oh God, I didn't notice that. I should have paid more attention. There you go. And I have a coffee here. So excellent. I wasn't prepared, but I guess I was.
Okay, well, I have a glass of water, which is not quite a drink. Well, I mean, it is a drink technically, so
it is.
So I'm prepared. So I guess one of the things that we're going to try to answer with this podcast is, a cell, carbon, and silicon walk into a bar, what they say. And so we'll see if we can come up with an answer, now or in the future. I mean, my initial answer is maybe they eat each other, but
funny story. It's not a joke. It's true. I actually came up with this idea of the name asking directly to that person there, if we want to call it person or entity, which is ChatGPT. So in a way, as we were saying before we started, if it is on the internet, it must be true.
It must be true. In fact, I use ChatGPT to make all my life decisions. I said, when I wake up in the morning, I say, ChatGPT, should I stay in bed or should I actually get up and do something and see what happens?
Yeah. Then we will explain what we're about to do here. But I'm actually having great conversation with the ChatGPT. I don't know. I found a way to be open-minded and throw some curveballs, some really weird questions, asking to impersonate some famous character like Carl Sagan, for example. And it's interesting. I'm having a good time. And then I actually write this stuff and I put it on a new newsletter. So there you have it. I'm working with it.
Yeah, it can be effective. It can also miss the mark. I recently co-chaired a meeting at NIH, National Institutes of Health, on multi-scale modeling. It's the IMAG consortium, which stands for Agency Modeling Analysis Group, I believe. I'm very bad with acronyms, so I can never tell.
I'm not good at it either. Yeah. But
it's really, to cover different areas of multi-scale modeling that are being done. And so we actually checked with ChatGPT to come up with like an image for the poster. And the results were not so great. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But, it's interesting. Of course, naturally, people are using it more and more. And speaking of the NIH, they did issue, I'm not sure if we can use the word warning or something like that. They indicated that, when it comes to like grant reviews or reviewing proposals, reviewers are not supposed to use ChatGPT to do that. And then, that's a real risk, in all honesty, that people are going to start using ChatGPT to write things or do like too many things that humans want to do. There's talk about like using ChatGPT to write science pieces and those things. And, you've seen those reports where people say they asked ChatGPT to write something that sounds very sciencey, but is actually not accurate. So we've got to be kind of careful about those types of things.
Yeah, it's a tool, and I think especially when it comes to writing academic paper, research paper, hiring people, making financial decision for other, you better actually verify that whatever come up, it's good. So it's good to have it. It's good, great tool. Not sure about what to do, and I'm sure though that we will talk a lot about this topic in the future. But maybe we should reveal the intention here, because we have, for the next few months, we had so much fun with our first chat, which wasn't GPT, it was our own chat, that we decided to do it again. And because we had no idea about what, we kept it pretty wide. And the first idea was 30 minutes with Bruce, because you write a lot. And then, of course, we'll do a little bit of an introduction about yourself, which I will let you do it. And then, maybe the joke about silicon, carbon, and a cell walk into a bar, because often it's going to be, and again, we'll learn why, because it will be probably about healthcare, technology, data science, and with me, it's going to go in society. There's no doubts about it. So let's do that. Let's introduce you, and then you tell us what's going on, what you wrote about in the past week or so.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Shall I introduce myself, or shall I stay completely?
Or ChatGPT if you want. See what that said about you.
Yeah, gee, I wonder what would happen if you put Bruce Lee into ChatGPT. I wonder what it would turn out.
I will do it and let you know. Actually, I'm writing a note right now.
Yeah, well, I always add the initial Y, Bruce Wiley, because rumor has it there's been other people named Bruce Lee, but that's purely rumor. But yeah, so I'm a professor at City University of New York. I also run a center there called the CAT Center, which stands for Center of Advanced Technology and Communication and Health. So we do a lot of work in developing different types of computer algorithms, AI stuff, modeling stuff to address health and healthcare issues. I've also started companies that do computer work and AI work. And another hat of mine is I do a lot of journalism. So I cover health and healthcare and science for Forbes. I also have a column Psychology Today, and I've written for other outlets like New York Times, Guardian, etc. So, just try to keep myself out of trouble or in trouble, depending on what you're talking about. But yeah, so I'm very interested in the convergence between science, health, technology, because that's the future, or that's actually the present. I mean, there's so much crossover amongst those things. And I think, we talked about cells, carbon, silicon, that covers a lot of different things. Of course, if you're not a carbon-based and not a cell-based organism, maybe this podcast is not for you. But if you do have cells and are carbon-based, we'll probably talk about something that's relevant to you, right?
Yeah, and the fun thing is that I have absolutely no idea what we're going to talk about, because I trust you. I trust that, and I know that you write really relevant pieces, and you are quite funny. I think you have a really interesting way to put things out there, like, a little bit of humor. I heard that somebody may not appreciate that, but that's social media for you. Not all the time we can please everybody. But I'm excited to have this. Literally the question is, what made you think the most in the past 10 days? And, what have you done? And then eventually we talk about that. So what is kicking the gears for Bruce in these days?
Well, I thought we'd used this whole time to keep playing that Baby Shark song over and over and over again. That's what I intended to do. I have it all set up. I actually wrote about a baby shark toy recall last week. There's this shark toy with a very sharp fin, and that fin can impale you. It's a bath toy, so there's a recall for that. And typically when you take a bath, your goal is not to be impaled usually. So that came to mind, and then the Baby Shark song came to mind, and then I couldn't get that Baby Shark song out of my head.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that happened over this past week.
Well,
so one of my goals
that's a good start. That's a good start.
That song in their heads.
Yeah, and it's a good start. I think who in hell thought about that was a good idea?
Yeah. No, we see a lot of situations where a sharp thing in bath water with kids is usually not a good idea. So that's triggered a voluntary recall. The Consumer Protection Agency, I might be saying their name wrong, but the U.S. Consumer Protection Safety Commission, I believe is their official name, issued that announcement that the company had to their credit, had a voluntary recall. So that's one of the things that I wrote about a week ago. Not a great idea. So one of the things to be careful about is, you always want to check recall and use. That's something that you want to keep an eye on, because you might have products and those types of things that are sitting around your house or your apartment that are actually subject to a recall, and that's something that not everyone thinks about, and that's going to be increasingly an issue. I think especially since products get more and more complex. I mean, we talk about technology, right? You've got apps and all these different types of things going on, and many times the assumption is that they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I think things are going to get more complex, because if you look at, if you order a ball and you see a ball and it's shaped like a cube, you're like, okay, this is not a ball. I'm going to return this, or to call someone. But things get more complex when you get technology, and we tend to forget. I think many times there's an assumption that if we get an app or we get some type of technology, that it's been fully vetted, that people actually have looked at it and said, okay, yeah, this actually works. That's an issue that we talked about with ChatGPT. We assume that the answers are going to make sense and, make reasonable, scientific, factual sense. But I think anyone who's delved into it realizes that, yeah, many times it does make sense, but sometimes it doesn't. And I think the same is true with a lot of the technologies out there. We've got to just be a little bit careful. We shouldn't be afraid of technology, but we should realize that, like anything, has it been tested? Is it doing what it says that it's supposed to be doing? And I think that's one of those things that will be an increasing issue in coming years. How do you actually test these things? How do you make sure they actually are validated?
So there are certain area that you can be quite certain that everybody has done the best they could to approve it. FDA, obviously, electronic device for health, either maybe for diabetes or pacemakers or all of that. But then, and we had this conversation a lot in cybersecurity, when it comes to IoT, you put the cheapest camera in your baby room, or even in your bedroom, which is never a good idea to put a camera in your bedroom unless there are the reason for that. But don't connect to the internet, because you don't know who else is going to come and watch whatever happened. And of course,
I can't imagine what could possibly go wrong by putting a camera in the bedroom and hooking up to the internet. What could possibly go wrong with that? Especially
when there is a website called Shogun out there, which can find every open cameras in the world. So, but we don't need to go there. But I guess my point is, it's where you were going. People expect, if it's on the shelf or on the virtual shelf on Amazon or whatever, somebody must have said, hey, this is good. This is not going to hurt you. But this is not the case, right? Why do you think we're there? We trust the market too much? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is something that's not really thought about, because you look at like the FDA you mentioned, or some of these regulatory agencies, they actually only regulate certain things. So if something's a medication, like officially a medication, then it has to go through all these different types of approvals. You have to go through preclinical studies, animal studies, and then clinical studies. And so there's a whole line of approvals. And I want to emphasize vaccines fall in that category. Kind of those claims on social media that all vaccines haven't gone through clinical trials. They go through clinical trials too. So all those things, like if it's officially considered a vaccine or a medication or a medical device, then it has to go through all these different types of standards. But the same is not true when something's a supplement or something is, doesn't fall into one of those categories. And many times you can just emphasize, there's fine print that says, this is not a device, or this is not a medication, or what have you. And then suddenly it doesn't actually fall under the FDA jurisdiction, or may not fall under other types of jurisdictions. So that's many times not thought of. And then many times, when it comes to technology, it's great that technology is moving forward very quickly, but that can also outpace, we saw that with social media, right? So social media, all kinds of things happen on social media, and people are still trying to figure out what to actually do with it. You want to strike a balance. You don't want to have a situation where things are just completely restrict and constrained. You don't want to constrain innovation, but at the same time, you want to make sure that the public is informed, right, that they actually know what's behind something. So this is an interesting territory. And I think if you are a consumer, you need to be aware. You need to realize that you have to do the right things to protect yourself.
Right, and it comes to that. Even when you go to the grocery store and you're buying something, like I'm mentioning this because one of the things that discussed in the cybersecurity industry was, can we actually label these electronics that are IoT to say, look, this is the amount of carbs you have in there. I mean, of course, I'm joking here. And this is what is good for you, bad for you. So, make then your own decision, which it's a complex decision. I don't even know how many people know exactly, how many carbs are good for you, or what is the bad cholesterol, the good cholesterol. So it seems to me that we kind of end up giving the last word to the public. And I don't want to sound like, negative on this, but I don't know. I mean, I think the public most often say, I don't want to know. I just want to have somebody that tells me it's okay. So we find ourselves in this loop that is not probably is only good for the business, because there's a lot of gray areas there.
Again, I want to emphasize that there's many people who are developing technology and new stuff that are very well-meaning, and they go through, make sure things are tested and validated, and et cetera. And, technology is really helping society in many different ways. The challenge is there are people who maybe unconsciously overlook certain things. And then, of course, there are the bad players, right? They're the people who try to fool people and those things like that. The charlatans, the snake oil salespeople. Every industry is going to have people like that. So how do you strike the balance between, you don't want to quash innovation, and you don't want to restrict the people who are doing well-meaning work. Because, we've seen that in certain industries where things are just too, there's no room to do anything. But at the same time, you've got the snake oil folks. So you've got to strike a balance. And, I think one of the balances is trying to give the consumer transparency, trying to help them say, okay, what's really actually in this? So,
and so definitely education is always the big factor. And and education is not just going to school or taking a course. It's actually reading papers and articles and listening to qualified people. Although again, a lot of people that said they're qualified, they may not. So we need to check their labels too.
And I think it's we can come up with all kinds of, we see a lot of buzzwords and things like that, and sometimes people will use these buzzwords without really actually knowing what they actually mean, right? So I remember someone asked me, can you AI this? I was like, oh, I didn't realize AI became a verb, so, uh, I think I'm going to AI the heck out of it. So,
Oh God.
so people use AI but you don't always know what AI means. You don't realize that artificial intelligence really encompasses, anytime you use a computer to replicate something that a human brain normally does, right? And that can cover many different things. That I can develop a program that flips a coin. It's just flip a coin, flip a coin. That's technically AI, right? Because
Yeah.
it's doing something which a human brain can do, but that's not going to be the best way to answer or make a decision, or maybe it is, depending on what you're trying to decide upon. So we have to keep in mind when you just say something like that, it can mean so many different things.
Yep. I love that. I mean, hey, we made Google a verb. Let me Google this. So I can totally see AI that.
Absolutely. Oh, that's when you know that you've arrived, right? When you've actually become a verb. So that could be a goal in life for you to actually become a verb.
So Bruce, I mean, I know you're really busy, always doing a lot of things, and as you said on your website, not necessarily in the order that you listed. I guess you list things in a different way according to what catch your attention. So I think we could talk about maybe something else that you catch your attention or you have worked on in the past couple of weeks, and then we will see how we can get to the next episode, where if it is in a month from now, I cannot even imagine how many more things are going to happen in technology, because a month in technology is a century somewhere else.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, things are changing at breakneck speed. It's the computer applications in healthcare, and different areas are continuing to grow. We've had conversations over the past. I mentioned that we had this multi-scale modeling meeting at the NIH, which I co-chaired, along with some great scientists, folks who have done all kinds of fascinating work in different areas of health. And when I say multi-scale modeling, it basically means building computer models that really cut across different scales. So speaking about a cell, a silicon, a carbon, well, of course, that's really the basic level. But then you've got things at an organ level, things at a person level, things at a group level, social connection level, things at environmental, economic level, all those different types of levels. And one thing that's overlooked is that all these things that actually connect with each other, right? So we like to think of ourselves of like, oh, I'm my own person, I do whatever I want, etc. But we're actually really influenced by a lot of different things. We're actually influenced by the people that we hang out with, either voluntarily or involuntarily, right? We've got our friends, our coworkers, people we see on the street, people in our neighborhood, etc. So they all affect what we do, and we affect what they do, and we're affected by our environment. Both the physical environment and the natural environment, which unfortunately, as you've probably heard, is getting hotter. We hit record temperature over the past couple days. And then we're also affected by economics. And that's one of the things that, at this meeting we talked about is how do you develop different types of computer algorithms and approaches that really account for all those different types of connections? Because there is a tendency to stay within one scale, right? So, we all talk about like siloing when it comes to science and different types of areas. I remember I got this career advice years ago from someone that says, the way to succeed in health is to pick one body part or one disease and do nothing but that for the rest of your life. And I was like, I can't pick a body part. And he was like, oh, it's simple. What's your favorite body part? And I'm like, I kind of like all of them. Right? You don't sit there and say, I'd be fine if I were just one body part. All right. So so I actually said, well, that's not really for me. I'm actually interested in how things connect and with each other, and because they do connect. Mind you, we do need people who go real deep. We need people who go real deep and study something very deeply. But I think at the same time, we also need people who connect different things. And I think that's really key when it comes to technology. Technology needs to understand and really adapt and address the fact that things are connected. So sometimes you'll see apps out there that say, do this for your health. And it really just focuses on one thing, like one thing. It doesn't really take into account that, well, I'm actually, affected by all of these things in society around me. So there is a need for different types of approaches to really account for these different types of connections. And that's one of the things that we covered during this meeting. And this is, part of a consortium that, meets throughout the year and finds ways to work together and sort of develop these multi-scale approaches. And I think that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind going forward when it comes to the development of these different types of technology approaches. We can't just, keep siloed. It's not as simple as just focusing on one thing.
Well, it's really interesting, and I have about 350 questions right now in my head. Okay. Some are related to technology, meaning the computer power to run this kind of complexity, right? Because when you were starting to talk about it, I'm thinking like, well, yes, we like to think in compartment and it makes our life easier. I don't know. I got a cold because I walk outside with the wet hair, like that. What my grandmother would say, and the world is simple like that. There's no virus. There's no other things going around. Yeah. Then when we come to technology, I'm thinking like the complexity and the power of computing that we need to run. I mean, last time when we talked the first time on the podcast, we're talking about the pandemic and not just this pandemic, but other pandemic and what are we going to do with all this data? So that's one of the questions. And the other one is like, it's more like a duh with a question mark, which is everything is connected. It doesn't take really a genius to do that. I used to watch these documentaries about the planet. I mean, the moment you go in space, you realize that literally the butterfly effect is real. Like the fertilization of certain part of South America are done by sand that come from Africa. So we're all one thing. So what is your take on both angles? Like one is the power of the mind, human, carbon, and the other is the power of silicon. Are we getting to a point that we can really do this scale complexity?
Yeah, I think, that's the real promise of technology. So technology is especially good when doing things that either take humans too long to do, right? Or it's difficult for a single human to do things. So, and one of these things is figuring out a lot of these different types of complex connections. So if you go out and say, I'm going to push a chair and you see the chair move, pretty straightforward. I push the chair, it moves, right? But then when you start adding these secondary, tertiary, quaternary, etc. effects, then it's difficult to figure out. And, we've seen situations where, like the weather, speaking of the weather, again, want to emphasize that we hit the hottest global temperatures July 3rd and then July 4th, right? All of these complex things happen because of that. We've got wildfires happening in Canada because of the drier underbrush and those things like that. We have changes in sort of storm centers and those things like that. That's very complex. Can you imagine trying to figure this out without computers? I think like a century ago, what did people really do? People went outside and say, okay, it looks like it's going to rain because it's getting darker. Or something's up because the cows, they're doing something funny out there, right? So that's how people figure it out, what's happening in the weather. And, you can figure out what might happen over the next half hour or so. But then like going beyond that, that's really difficult. I know they had like the Farmer's Almanac and stuff like that, but how much could you really figure out?
Right.
what really was the big game changer was the fact that then you, at some point, 50s and 1960s, you start having computers that were able to bring all these things together. And now we take it for granted. We go on, we see a weather map. So we take it for granted that, we see these storm centers or we take it for granted that someone can actually tell us that, look, a hurricane's moving towards this thing. And that's all technology. Computers do all that type of stuff. So there is precedence for bringing all these things together. And I can name a number of other fields where that's happened. So yes, you can do that. Now, the computing has also been catching up as well, because it used to be a computer meant like one of the big mainframes, or,
Right.
Commodore 64 for people who are old enough to realize what that was. But now you've got the same type of computing power, in the palm of your hand that you had before, and then now you've got things like quantum computing that can do all sorts of things. So, so yeah, it's exciting about what can actually happen. So we shouldn't necessarily limit ourselves to what we thought was like, the constraints before, because all that stuff is changing.
And maybe we end up with my other observation about how human handle complexity, because based on sociology and psychology, a lot of people prefer to know that things are black or white, it's good or bad. Somebody's telling that, and that's the book, and I move on with my life in peace with myself. The truth is, there's a lot of gray and a lot of different other colors, and sometimes I don't know. I mean, I feel like with all the tech that we have, we'd rather say to deny this and live your simple life without understanding the power that you actually have in your computer, in your phone.
Yep. So I remember distinctly, a number of years ago, a patient came to my clinic. I'm a physician by training. And I was trying to explain the different types of options. Say, if you, the patient had a condition, I said, you can do this, and these are the pros and cons, these are the pros and cons. And the patient said, Doc, don't tell me the options, just tell me what to do. And don't tell me why, just tell me what to do. Yeah. And so
no pressure on you, right?
Yeah, and that's not my inclination, because I feel that, like, a decision, when someone makes a decision, it should be a personal decision. Like, they should, I can give the options. I can say, okay, these are different possibilities, but there's things which people weigh things in different ways when they're making a decision. So things are not, they're not black and white. And there's subtleties and there are risks and things that you want to balance. But yeah, there's a tendency. You go onto social media, and the number of times where I see all, never, always, words like that, or there are two ways of doing this. There's the right way and the wrong way. Things like that. And that can be comforting, right? That gives people certainty. Right? They're like, okay, it's always like this. I never have to worry about that. There's very few things in life that are always, right? I mean, avocado toast is always good. But besides that, there's no other always there. So yeah, there's gray. There's lots of gray out there, and we've got to get used to that. But you're absolutely right. It can be comforting to say things are always a certain way.
Well, it's like social media. It's your only option is you say nothing or you like it. Or if you're on YouTube, maybe you can not like it or like it. But what if I'm in between? Can I get like kind of like Caligula's and Nero, like at the Colosseum, where I can position my finger on a scale from 1 to 10, and where 5 is kind of not good enough, but 6 is starting to get okay.
Yeah, much. Or they put an eyebrow that you can raise up and down.
Right? Or like a thinking face, which is my favorite emoji, by the way. Yeah, well, talking about thinking, Bruce, I think this is exactly what I expected. A good conversation about a lot of different things that, no matter what they do, come around in technology and society and healthcare, because I don't know, that's what I like, and seems to me that's what you like as well. So I'm glad that we're starting this series, which we haven't really mentioned, except that we have scheduled a few sessions here. But the idea is once a month we get together. I mean, we get together more because we should also say that we are part of the Mentor Project, and we're very, very proud of that. Fantastic organization. I'll put the link in this podcast note as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what technology is moving, because I'm sure in a month from now there's going to be, I don't know, maybe a new social media. Well, no, that just happened today, which is not that different from the other one. We'll see where that goes. And maybe ChatGPT will be up to, I don't know, 5.0. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
Bruce, I'm very, very glad that you're on with me. So, yeah.
Yeah, new social media is an interesting thread, so to speak.
Yeah, we could totally talk about that.
Yeah.
Not today, though. Let's give it a break to the audience, and thank everybody. Again, thank you, Bruce. I'm looking forward for the next session, and for everybody else, just check out all the links for Bruce and all the thing that he does, and the articles will be on the note. Subscribe to Redefining Society podcast so that you will not miss the next one. And be well, and watch the weather. See what's going on out there.
Yep, gotta keep cool in this heat. So you should always stay cool, but especially in this heat. So,
and that's the advice. Follow it. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next time. Thank you, Bruce.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Devo unlocks the full value of machine data for the world's most instrumented enterprises. The Devo Data Analytics Platform addresses the explosion in volume of machine data and the crushing demands of algorithms and automation. Learn more at devo.com. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.